Hello and welcome back to the Hollybush Railway. I'm going to post another little video today, and this one's going to be a bit of a follow-on from the last one that I posted, which was the 2-year anniversary video with a little montage of how the layout has developed over the last couple of years since I started coming back into model railways and started building this TT model railway. And as you saw in that video, it's just started out with little Scotsman starter sets, just a little basic oval in a little corner of my living room, and has in the last couple of years developed into taking over the spare room here. And yeah, it's come on quite a way, so I'm just going to take this little video today to give you a tour around how the layout is now and what I'm planning to do with it going into 2025. I've got a bit of time today to do all this because it is a freezing cold day today, and if you know me in real life or from my username on the Hornby forums, Dave the Busker, and as you can see from the background of the video here, I'm a musician when I'm not playing with the trains, and I play with a rock band, Marshall Chips, and a Ceilidh band, Furore Ceilidh band. I sometimes use the music from these bands as background music in the videos. And when I'm not playing with them, I'm out busking. It's a horrible freezing day today, and there's no way I'd be out busking today in this weather. My hands would not be able to get round the guitar, I would just freeze. So I've got today to play with the trains and show you around where Hollybush is just now and where it's going to go in the future. So I'll start off with a little bit of an overview of the track layout. It's arranged so that I've got two main lines which are continuous running in a circle around the outside of the board. I've also got a branch line which comes off from one of the main lines. It goes out to the station out here, goes off round the back, comes back out onto the main line. Essentially there's just a very big passing loop which lets me have a little bit more rolling stock on the layout at one time, just gives me an option for which one to run. And in the middle I've got the freight depot, which is essentially an end-to-end layout line running in the middle of a continuous running oval. So I've got continuous running main line and an end-to-end shunting layout, both in one. The name for the layout, Hollybush Railway, this comes from the village where my grandparents lived, Gran and Grandpa Burns. They lived just outside the village of Hollybush, which is in Ayrshire in Scotland, which is where I grew up. I grew up in the town of Ayr. They were just outside Ayr in the village of Hollybush, and I'd go out and visit them quite often. And there is a real life Hollybush Railway. It's the Ayr to Dalmellington line. It's closed to passengers back in the Beach and Cuts. The line was still there when I was growing up in use as a freight line, and there's this massive viaduct that you see from the road when you're going from Ayr to Hollybush, and I always hoped that I'd kind of go past at the time when the train was running over. It almost never did, but it was still in use for some freight. I think that has stopped now. But the backscene view here, this looks very much like what the real life Hollybush is. This is I think this was a Gauge Master backscene, and it very much reminds me of what Ayrshire looks like. Now, the layout is not intended to be a realistic depiction of what the railway line through Hollybush is. Hollybush is a very small village, and this has turned into something more of a small town scene. It combines some elements of village life, small town life, and city life, as this reflects growing up in the small town of Ayr, going out to visit grandparents in the countryside, and where I am now living in Glasgow. So there's little elements of all of them combined, squashed down into this 8 foot by 4 foot 1:120 layout. This is a scene down the main street of Hollybush, and this is the section that has most of the big city influences on it. Nice and Sleazy's is a real life music venue here in Glasgow, which I have performed at many times. So acoustic at the open mic run by Jerry Lyons, and several times with bands that I've played in. And it's got these knock figures out in front of it from people that have been in the pub all day, and that is definitely a sight that you will see on Sauchiehall Street, where the venue is in real life. And of course, what is a city scene these days without a Greggs? Another thing that takes some inspiration from real life Ayrshire is this bus here. This was bought from eBay as a double-decker London bus, but I've modified it a little bit. I've not repainted it, I wasn't ready to go that far with it, but I have taken the London destination board and advertising off it and replaced it. So it's the number 52, which is the real life bus that goes from Ayr to Dunwellington, which I would take when I was going to visit my grandparents. And the advertising, if I bring it forward a little bit, on one side we've got Burns Gallery, which was the business that my dad and my grandpa ran from the old schoolhouse in Hollybush. That was our picture framing business. Long gone now. On the other side is an advert for my own band. This is one of the many little bits of self-promotion and references to my band and friend bands that I've got in here. So this was an album that came out a couple of years ago, and I've put that little nod into it there. I'll show you a few of the other musical references around the layout now. So down here, hopefully if the camera can focus on this, because this is a very, very small little detail, we've got one of the billboards that I made up, and this has got 3 posters on it. One is another one for Marshall Chipped. On the right, on the left, is a poster for REM's Up World Tour, and that was the first gig that I ever went to. REM are my favourite band of all time. Peter Buck, the guitarist, is the inspiration for me to learn to play guitar. So that was one of the things that I wanted to put in. And the middle poster, I didn't think that the joke came through very well on this smaller one, so I remade it in a bigger poster, which I'll move the camera over to now. You can see it a bit more clearly on this larger billboard. And this is a reference to another favourite band of mine, Half Man, Half Biscuit, and the song Mate of the Block, which has the lyrics: I found myself being sued by the firm Morifero. I'd sprayed a graffito onto one of their hoardings. It was for Monsters of Rock, and I'd sprayed in Church Hall if wet. They were sealing my fate when I said that I'm a mate of the bloke who does the PA. And just across the road from that one, there's an advert for a friend of mine. This is Alison Eels and the album Mox Mox. That's a brilliant album, and I recommend you go and give it a listen. I've got a couple of posters to hers as well. There's another one down at the other end of the layout for an EP that she brought out just after this album. There's another one of hers, that's the 4 for a Boy EP. And next to it we've got some vintage Iron Brew and Tonics adverts, and a poster for holiday trips to Ayr, to my hometown. Up at the back of the layout, just in front of the countryside scene, there's some more musical posters. That's Alison there on the left, Marshall Chipped on the right, and in the middle is Visceral Noise Department. And that is a band that Pete and Mike, who are the bass player and drummer with me and Marshall Chipped, that's their other band. And that's their Distant Banging debut album. So there's lots of little musical references all around the layout to myself and to friends who have played things. I'm going to add lots more of these in as I further develop the layout. On this one, this is a little nod to my favourite film directors. On the left we've got a poster for my favourite film of all time, A Matter of Life and Death. And on the right, The Red Shoes. both directed by the Archers, Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. Now this is one end of the freight section on the layout, that little end-to-end railway. And this is the industrial complex here at Hollybush. And this is very, very loosely modelled after Skeldon Mills, which is the factories that were down at the bottom of the hill, down towards the River Doon, down at my grandparents' house. It didn't really look much like this, but just a kind of a representation of sort of old factory buildings here on the layout. And this is generally where the OH shunter lives. There's a little scene down by the factory where the foreman is just clocking off and heading out. And we've got a truck being loaded up with some goods from the factory there. The foreman figure is, I think, either one of the Knock or Pretier, if I'm pronouncing that right. That's a specific TT model range figure. The guy that's in the doorway there, that's one that came from a very cheap N-gauge multi-pack. I think it was about 100 tiny little figures. They're not very detailed, but they let me get some people onto the railway without spending a small fortune. And the truck that he's loading the goods onto, that's one of the Oxford die-cast ones that came out for TT120. Over here we've got the goods platform for the factory and a couple of Moorview models figures who are just loading some things up for the next freight wagons that arrive. The red brick factory buildings, these are Metcalfe, and these are marketed as N-gauge, but I have found that they work very well with TT120. I'm not sure if they're slightly overscaled for N, or if they just work well as very slightly smaller buildings for TT, but they seem to not look out of place to my eyes at any rate. And we've got some more of the cheap N-gauge figures wandering around the yard there. I will replace them with proper TT figures. As I say, these were just very cheap, not very detailed ones, but they're just enough to give just a sense of the place being populated for now, without spending an absolute fortune on them. And across the other side of the yard is E. Bromfit and Sons, joiners and cabinet makers. And I think this was the first Metcalfe kit that I'd made for the layout. I'd started off with some very, very basic cheap kits that I'll show you later. They just gave me a start in building things, then made some more with some other free download kits, which were a little bit more detailed, but there's nothing quite like the Metcalfe kits for getting some actual detail into your railway buildings. And they are cabinet makers and joiners. They've just taken a shipment of wood, and that is one of the little things that I've got on the railway, one of the little details from Greg MacDonald, who you'll know well from the Hornby forums and from his Mac Train channels. As I say, I started off with some just free download models. This is some of the first buildings that I made for the layout. They've been relegated to just up the back, kind of a bit out of sight now. They are quite basic. They're essentially just a box that you download and put together with a house printed on them. But I've added some little details to make them a bit more personal. There's posters, fly posters up for my band, for Tunnock's Tea Cakes, and if I bring out this one, without knocking the camera over, the Ayrshire Post, which was the local newspaper when I grew up, and in the middle there, Curry's Red Cola soft drink, which I think you can only get in Ayrshire now, originally made in the village of Auchinleck. and some more posters for gigs that I've played at. On the far left and second from right between the Red Cola and the Iron Brew are a couple of posters for a gig that I've played quite often over in Edinburgh, the Freak Easy Cabaret, which was put on by my mate Colin. In this corner of the layout we've got one of my favourite little scenes here. We've got the kids playing football, not quite jumpers for goalposts, but it's not far off. We've got the churchyard scene. This is, I'm probably going to replace the church at some point with the Metcalfe one, just to give it a little bit more detail. But I love all the small little bits that I've added in, all the things like the gravestones, the parish notice boards. That's from Scale Model Scenery. We've got the roadworks going on out the front, cyclists going by, and the postie parked up on the pavement for a wee chat. And we've got the most important thing on the layout right now in the bottom left. We've got a TARDIS. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and so of course there's going to be a TARDIS on there. But it also gives me the perfect excuse to run any combination of rolling stock that I like. I mean, I know Model Railway Rule 1 is, it's your layout, run what you want. But if anyone asks why I've got an Intercity 125 running with an A4 Falcon along with a Cosla Rail 66, time is in flux, but the Doctor's on the case. Now if we go back over to the tenement buildings on Main Street, this is the view out the back. And they're obviously quite posh on this side of the street because they've got some pretty considerable back gardens here. Someone's got the washing it, and I don't think those sheets are going to get awfully dry and awfully white when it's on the back of a main line with the steam trains going by. But they're giving it a go. Got a couple of factory workers having a chat over the garden gate there. It's bin day, beware of the dogs. And I'm going to try and get the camera in close enough to capture the absolute tiniest little details that I've got in the layout. And if you can just see there's a little black cat on the fence. And there's a couple of black cat references on the layout. That's a little tribute to my cat Tinker, who passed away just when I was starting making Hollybush Railways. And there's another cat sitting on the back wall of one of the Metcalfe buildings. And when I was making one of the Metcalfe kits into a pub, I noticed that one of the signs it included was the black cat, so obviously it had to be that. And this is the little industrial scene in the yard by the freight depot, and they're working away on trying to restore the boiler for a little steam tank engine there. And this is a scene that you could probably see in real life on the actual Hollybush Railway, because there is one small section of that which is still running, the Doon Valley Railway. And one of the people who helps run that is my old German teacher, Archie Tall, and his son Andrew is a good friend of mine. We were in the same year at school. He played in a band with me when we were at university. And I'm hoping in the summer to go up and film some stuff there for a video on the actual real Hollybush Railway, the Doon Valley Heritage Railway. And down here we've got the level crossing scene. This is one of my favourite ones to film on for the layout. Partly because it's a nice little shot with the car waiting by the level crossing, and partly because it's one of the easiest bits for me to actually get the camera into. It's down right at the front of the layout, and I can very easily get the camera positioned to get some nice shots of trains running past here. It's also where the little forest trail leads off into the woods from. We've got a picnic table, picnic area here at the start of it. And across on the trail we've got a hiker off for a day out in the woods. So that's a little overview of some of my favourite scenes here on the Hollybush Railway. Now I just want to talk very briefly about what I'm hoping to do some of this year. Now you might have noticed in some of the videos that there is a line going off here that I haven't ballasted yet. Now this is where I'm hoping to start a bit of an incline section. And this branch line is going to run round here, slowly increasing in height and going up and up and up to where it's going to run in a viaduct across the back scene, kind of a bit like the Burnton Viaduct in the real life Hollybush Railway, near to the Wellington line. And that will run on to a little shelf extension here, where I'm going to build a small terminus station. That is very much for the long-term plans. I'm hoping to at least start it this year. But, that will let me get on with developing the last little bit of scenic section that is still, at the moment, just bare baseboard. I hope you've enjoyed this look around Hollybush Railway. It's been a longer video than I thought it was going to be, but I hope you stuck with it and enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, do all the usual YouTube stuff. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.